Namaste and greetings. I, Reetlat, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI Web Policy Learning. Today marks the second day of Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship, an online national winter school program, a 2-month online immersive introductory leadership certificate training fellowship. This training program is organized by IMPRI, Gender Impact Studies Center, and is chaired by Professor Vibhuti Patel ji.
Namaste.
We welcome you, ma'am. This program has an excellent panel of experts who will be sharing their expertise for the duration of this program. We are honored to have a distinguished panel of experts joining us for day 2, which includes Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, visiting distinguished fellow Professor IMPRI, and Ms. Urvashi Prasad ji, Director, Office of Vice Chairman, Niti Aayog. The panel of convener comprises of Dr. Arjun Kumar ji, Dr. Simi Mehta ji, Professor Gumadi Sridevi ji, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam ji. Proceeding further, I welcome all the participants to this enlightening deliberation and thank you for being interested and putting your time, energy, and efforts into fostering the development of young women leaders in public policy while helping us to bring together the practitioners and participants through this course for impactful policy research and action. We have also shared the course outline and reading resources in your email for your kind perusal. Before we start today's session, I would like to remind the housekeeping announcements once again. Please join the meeting on time. There will be a Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions on the Q&A box. The questions must not be posted as anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise and refrain from making general comments in the question to save time. Now, without any further ado, let's start our program. It is my honor and privilege to invite Professor Vibhuti Patel ji to expand our knowledge on the economic, social, and political dimensions of women in India. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Reetlat, for such an interesting welcome address. And I would like to first of all thank Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, Dr. Shalu Nigam, and today's anchor, Ms. Reetlat, IMPRI team. And we welcome Ms. Urvashi Prasad and also the participants for day 2 of this 2-month online immersive introductory leadership certificate training fellowship program. The day 1 was on 6th of January, extremely interesting. We had a brilliant speech by Madam Amarjit Kaur, who acclimatized the participants about the recent debates and discussions and deliberations going on in the women's rights movement with regards to legislative coordination. And also there was the feeling of jubilation that we have with the bill of 33% reservation for women becoming an act, and some of the mind-boggling issues that we face on different fronts in the economic, social, cultural, and legal field were also deliberated upon by her. And she also said that it is very important to build bridges, and we should see to it that we don't allow any kind of polarization to harm the interest of women. Now, my today's presentation is on women in India, exploring economic, social, and political dimensions. I'm trying to encapsulate last 75 years of the developments in India and in the way they have impacted women's existential reality and the challenges that are faced by women in our country. So this is my PowerPoint presentation. It's a very exhaustive topic, and I've tried to cover as much as possible in such a short time of some 30 minutes or what, yeah. So most important reality, I think, as the pictures shows, that it is in the area of missing women. First of all, why women, there is such a low participation of women in different sectors of the economy. That is the question all the movers and shakers in the world or international organizations are also asking India. And we also, but at one level, we also see that women are now in extremely diverse fields. They are making very important contribution. So this kind of a contradictory reality we are seeing. Women are multitasking, and there are the gender norms that come in the way of women. Women in agriculture, they are playing pivotal role, but the recognition of women as farmers, that is also a challenge. And now, for the first time in our country, we have a women farmers who have come together under the leadership of Mahila Kisan Ekta Samiti, and which is an all India body active in 18 states of our country. And the recent debate on women's in the electoral politics. So these are, I think, some of the very important concerns that we have in the post-independence period, and especially in the 21st century. So the first one is the question of women's access to developmental needs, human developmental needs, in which education plays a very important role. So eliminating discrimination and universalization of education, which India accepted in the year 2000, and all of us are paying our 2% professional tax to the kitty of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan without even grumbling. So that shows the maturity of Indian population and Indian citizen when it comes to subsidizing the education for the communities, children of the communities which are underserved. Reducing gender gap in secondary and higher education is a very important area. National education policy is also talking about how to see to enhance the retention rate of women, and what kind of support systems are required, especially for the weaker sections of society, especially scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, other backward caste and minorities, to see to it that women and girls from these communities are able to enter the institutions of higher learning. Gender sensitive curricula is another very important this thing, that how can we use the educational system, the teaching learning experiences to bridge the gender gap. That is a very important. Another thing is that articulation of women's needs and demands through the women's policy. So I think we had one policy, the first it was in 2001, and that policy was unanimously passed by the Parliament of India, which covered all the important areas of and the life cycle of women, which was Women Empowerment Policy 2001. Again, after 15 years, the exercise was initiated, where Women Empowerment Policy 2016, about which there were many roundtables that taken place, region-wise roundtables, but it has still not been converted into a policy. It has still remained at the level of draft. Now, yeah. So the question of women's economic rights and equality in education, that is very important. That has been spelled out in the Right to Education Act 2009. And the priorities are given to the increased enrollment and retention of adolescent school, because the highest number of dropout takes place among the adolescent girls after they start menstruating. And also because of the inability to cope with English, maths, and science. So many girls, they are out of the secondary education, and we see that by the time it is a time to enter the higher education, only 1/4 of the girls are left out, because we are now seeing to it that with universalization of education, nearly 100% enrollment has been sought by different states, but this is what is happening. So the question of vocational education and the skill-based education becomes very important for those who have left the secondary education, and age at marriage is also now increased to 21. So the girls in the age group of 14 to 21, for them, the bridge courses are becoming a very important challenge. Now, another very important thing, that do we have education which makes them job ready? So the question of converting the degrees into the career is very important. And I think here comes the catch, because UGC on the one hand is boasting about millions of Indian girls now, they have degrees as compared to earlier times, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, but they don't get translated into career. So what is thing that at one level, the participation of women in education institution has increased, retention rate has increased, degree holders have increased, but why don't this degree, and it is not only the general degree of BA, BCom, I'm talking of even professional degrees of chartered accountant, lawyer, MBAs, engineers, why they are also not part of the workforce. That is the challenge which we are trying to address. Another thing is STEM, that why are girls not showing much interest in the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So do we inculcate that interest at a very young age so that girls also we have more number of girls with where the base is of STEM subjects. So engineers and doctors and scientists that we can have. We have seen that given the congenial atmosphere, women have excelled. ISRO scientists have shown that they are capable if they are given the opportunity. Now, second very important aspect is that of a labor force. As I told you, that declining work participation of women has been a major concern right from the time of Towards Equality report, which was tabled in the Parliament of India in 1974, because 71 census had shown only 11% women as main workers. And then the whole exercise about conceptual and operational biases about defining women's work, and the whole category of unpaid family work, that you may not be paid for the work that you are doing of collection of fuel, fodder, water, livestock raising, kitchen gardening, but it augments the family resources. So how to net? So then the NSS started getting data on unpaid family work also. But what we see that from 1991 to 2011, if that is the census data we had, and now we have a PFLS data from the must be Ministry of Statistics and Program Planning has also given us data. So there have been differences in the estimates, like CMI data would say that it's a 23% of women are in the workforce, while the must be data says that it's a 35% of women who are in the workforce, but still, as compared to many of the neighboring countries and Asian countries, it is less. So we have to create more enabling environment for women at every level, whether they are unskilled, semi-skilled, or highly skilled and professionally competent, to create an enabling environment for them to enter into the workforce. Now, when it comes to, and workforce is directly linked to the kind of degrees women and men have. So if you can see, when it comes to the general degrees, we have a more percentage of workforce, and I think about which the corporate world has also complained that this general degrees of BA, BCom doesn't enhance their employability. What we need is a employment-oriented education, and also the vocationalization of education becomes very important. If you see the various streams in which we are creating our youth or our qualified people who can enter the workforce, you can see a large majority of boys and girls, both blue are boys and pink, the pink bar is for women. When it comes to, say, bachelor's degree or BA, BCom, or even BSc, we have more number as compared to degree holders with technology, engineering, or the business degrees, or Master of Science, MSc, education. So there, as you more and more professionalization of education happens, in general, the percentage of youth with professional degrees reduces, and in that also we see the discrepancy. The iShare report recently shows that except for MTech and CA, I think in all other disciplines, we have seen that whether it's a private education or public sector education, women are excelling, and the number has also increased. Now, another important aspect about which we are concerned is a participation of women in the decision-making body. That large number of women who are at the bottom of the pyramid, they don't have any voice, neither representation nor voice. But as we go into the upper echelons of power, the strength and their percentage also declines. Now, coming to the question of public finance, what kind of allocation the state is making so far as the education is concerned. So if we see that in the 21st century, we have seen that the percentage of the amount allocated for school education is also less than 3%. Okay? While the Kothari Commission way back in 1964 had recommended minimum 6% of GDP should be allocated for education. Even the National Education Policy 2020 also has recommended 6% of the GDP, but we are still far away from it. I'm talking only about the school education, which I think we consider as a merit good. It's not considered that market should rule the school education directly. State has a very important role in this. But when it comes to university education or the college education, it is even much less because the market looks after that. So the filtering of the students that takes place, those who are able to pay the fees and those who use the fees and those who are not, that is decided by the level of commercialization that you have of educational institution. So as we can see that MHRD data shows that the percentage of total budgetary expenditure to GDP has been declining over the years. And we have also seen that the gap that you see, the gross enrollment ratio and out of school children. So when it comes to elementary education, we have 40 lakhs children who are out of school in the year 2018. So this is the pre-pandemic data, but post-pandemic, it is even more. There is one estimate which says that currently nearly 3 crore Indian children are out of school, and many of, more than half of them, happen to be girl children. Secondary education, you see even the gap is more. There are 11 million children who are out of school. And when it comes to senior secondary school, that means the HSC, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, there are even 20 million, that means 2 crore children are out of school. And when it comes to higher education, nearly 7 crore children are out of school. They are left out. So we have a very long way to go. And as per the promise that we want by 2030, we want nearly half of Indian youth to enter the higher educational institution. That has been the goal and the promise of in the Sustainable Development Goal that India has made. So the major concerns in the education is the judicious implementation of right to education. Now we have this new law where 25% of the seats in all educational institutions, schools have to be allocated, reserved for the children from underserved or the poverty groups. A special focus on educational needs of Dalits, tribals, Muslim, disabled persons with disability, very important agenda. Enhancing quality of education under Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, imparting gender-sensitive education and challenging the sex stereotypes, that's very important, and increase in the budgetary allocation of education to 5% of GDP, but actually it should be 6%, that is the recommendation, but at least the Right to Education campaign is asking for that. So this, and increase retention rate of secondary and higher education level students with the help of affirmative action. So this affirmative action can be in the name of bridge courses, one-to-one teaching, good library facilities, hostel facilities, a safe and free subsidized transport. We have seen that at a sub-national level, the states which are very proactive in promoting this kind of infrastructure, the educational outcomes are very bright. Kerala, for example, Tamil Nadu, in fact, all 4 southern states, they have taken a very proactive measures in providing supportive services. Even in Maharashtra, the children in the rural areas, students in rural areas, they can just show their identity card and travel for free. So these are very important. Plus, when it comes to women, having a safe toilet blocks with running water, which is still a luxury, only the city dwellers can have it. In the rural areas, it's not there. So the massive educational infrastructure in the rural and the remote areas is required. regulation of private sector in the education, what should be the cap of the fees. Periodically, we hear we read and we listen to the debates on what should be the fees IITs and IIMs should be charging, what should be the fees private engineering colleges and medical colleges should be traveling, all these international schools about that. But it is a totally unregulated market, and there is a rampant commercialization leading to a lot of malpractices and a lot of compromises also, like you pay money and you get degree. That kind of scenario also has been witnessed by educationists like me, who has been in the field for past 4.5 decades. Now, the question of another this thing is a question of employment. What kind of discrimination, how the labor markets are socially constructed, and labor markets also are layered and they are segmented, and women are the worst. They are at the bottom of the pyramid of the whole labor markets, labor market economy, and the whole political economy of labor market also is using the gender stereotypes to disallow women from having equal opportunity, equal treatment, and equal rewards for the work that do. So it is in this context that the basic, the employers' organizations, citizens, etc., bureaucrats, governance structures, political structure, all of them have to be constantly reminded that the right to work is an inalienable right of all human beings, right to the same employment opportunity, including the application of all the criteria for selection. There should not be any discrimination against women, right to free choice of profession and employment. In fact, there have been n number of public interest litigations by women where just for being a woman, they have been denied job, no, even when they were equally qualified. We see this kind of discrimination happening more with the women engineers, no. If there was a time where ONGC would not employ women even from the IITs, no, for their offshore duty. So now those kind of operational level discrimination have been challenged by individual women, group of women, trade unions, and also the lot of media coverage also takes place. Now, the right to equal remuneration, we see the salary gap. It's a pay gap is not only happening in India, it's a universal problem. This year's Nobel Prize has gone to a Harvard economist who has proved that over last 200 years there has been a major wage gap, even in the economy of America, or even there are many studies done even in the Australia about the wage pay gap for the same level of qualification and the work, how women and which are the ways in which women are denied promotion or denied equal wage, or wherever there is arbitrary method of giving the package, the package system which so many Fortune 500 companies have. There also you see massive wage gap. And in our country, at least those who are in the 6% of the workforce, who are in the organized sector, who are in the statutory sector, they are governed by Equal Remuneration Act, and our constitution also guarantees that. But 92% of workforce, which is in the informal sector, and especially women in the informal sector, they suffer the loss, and they get nearly 1/3 of the wages, even when the state is employer, like MG Narega. Even in Narega also, the work allotment is done by the contractor. And these contractors also are governed by the gender stereotypes. And they also give different kind of tasks. And they are the ones who decide what is skilled, what is semi-skilled, and what is unskilled. Any work which women do is always classified as semi-skilled. So if you are digging the pit, it is skilled, and you would get different wages. While if you are loading and unloading the soil, you would get different wages. So that these kind of gender stereotypes also come in a way of women not getting equal treatment and equal rewards of the work. Another very important concern is occupational health and safety. The whole of informal sector is governed by law of jungle, and the whole question of occupational health, the labor processes, labor relations, the workload, all these things are compromised. Now we have a new labor codes, code on standard of work, so labor standard, code on wages, code on occupational health, and also code on social protection. So in that also a lot of current debates are going on about these labor codes. Now, the question of the rights of working women, that is very important. And I think that is why it is, we need to, though currently it is applicable to only women in the organized sector, but it is very important. Once you raise the benchmark, it will also start having a ripple effect even for the women in informal sector. In order to prevent discrimination against women on grounds of marriage or maternity, and to ensure their effective right to work, state parties shall take the appropriate measure. That is what our law says, to prohibit and subject to imposition of sanctions, dismissal on the ground of pregnancy or maternity leave, or discrimination in dismissal on the basis of the marital status. There was a time where the state-controlled aviation industry, we had only monopoly at that time. It was Indian Airlines and Air India. Any woman who got married, she was immediately terminated. And the Air Hostesses Union had to fight. And it was only after 1976 when we got Equal Remuneration Act, taking care of equal opportunity, equal treatment, and equal rewards, that many women started individually or collectively using this law to fight against workplace discrimination. To introduce maternity leave with a pay or with comparable social benefits without loss from the from employment, and also seniority and social allowance. Just because she has delivered a baby or she's pregnant, you can't just disallow her to get seniority or whatever social allowances that are there in terms of protection, social security, and even the opportunity for self-development, like sending her for training programs and all. To encourage the provision of necessary supporting social services, and I think it's very important that the the introduction of family leave. Why should childcare be only a woman's responsibility? Childcare or a family responsibilities, or looking after the sick people in the family, is everybody's responsibility. So you just can't have that. The leave it should be called family leave, and both men and women of the family should be granted this leave. Special protection to women during pregnancy in any type of work, so that the baby or her health is not jeopardized. So how much weight she can carry. She may need to go to the use washroom more often during pregnancy, or certain kind of work which demands bending or a heavy lifting should not be given to her. Protective legislation relating to matters covered in this article shall be reviewed periodically. That means as the labor processes change, as the nature of work changes. For example, in Tamil Nadu and in Kerala, young women fought and filed case, public interest litigation, demanding right to sit, because in the malls, in the shops, they have to stand for 12 hours, because these are the informal sector. Shop opens at 8 o'clock in the morning and it is open till 8 in the evening. So 12 hours continuously standing, that is really torturous. So these women, they demanded that whenever there are no customers, or when it is possible to sit and do the transaction, why not be allowed? So this was not the problem 30 years back. Okay, they were not questioned. There used to be a family-owned kirana shops where everyone worked according to their internal adjustment in the family. Now it is not there. So the new problems when arise, or the data entry operator, or women working in the call center, or in the night shifts, or traveling long distance, so all these are the new challenges that we are facing because of the globalization, because of the newer ways of industrial organizations and all, and also the distance from workplace to home has increased drastically. Urbanization has increased it drastically. The question of housing problem in the urban areas is also said that the people who live in a faraway suburb by the industrial clusters or the offices are much away from their home. So keeping these changes that are happening, we need to review these laws and tweak them according to the requirement of the economy, requirement of the workforce. Another thing is that the economic rights of women in India, when we talk about that, the first and foremost concern is that of a whole informalization of labor market, doing away with nearly 200 state-specific laws and 48 central legislations which are not applicable to the informal sector, and that's why employers can behave the way they like. Hire and fire policies are totally arbitrary. No way the protection of the workers is taking place. So it is in this context that these two laws, Equal Remuneration Act 76 and Maternity Benefits Act, which was strict, where there were changes which were made in the earlier 1961 Act, which allowed 90 days of maternity leave before and including before and after the delivery of baby. But now it has been increased. Currently, it is to 26 weeks of maternity benefits and 2 weeks of paternity benefits. Even man has a responsibility at the time of delivery, so that has been accepted. The most violated and most invisibilized law that we have in our country is the Unorganized Workers Social Security Act 2008, which is very comprehensive. And it came as a result of Arjun Sen Gupta Committee's report. You can download that report. It is in public domain, but not much debate has taken place about this law. And it is grossly violated by employers. Had Unorganized Workers Social Security Act been implemented during the pandemic, the migrant workers would not have suffered so much. Nearly 3 crore migrant workers had to go back to their native place, either by walking or by using container or using any overcrowded trucks, and so much of human misery that happened even at the time of partition. Such a mass scale of reverse migration or the dislocation of people had not happened, which happened mainly because of the Migrant Workers Act, and the Unorganized Workers Social Protection Act was completely violated. Even for the days they had worked, like nearly for 15 days of March 2020, they had workers had worked. Even those wages were not paid, and that is what the social scientists call it, wage theft. You have stolen the wages of the workers who had really worked, and you have not, employers did not pay it. Now, another thing is that as an economist, how do we see the neoliberal macroeconomic policies? How are they impacting the survival struggles of the large majority of population? It is not only in India, it's a global problem. Everywhere, neoliberal economics policies have created tremendous reduction in the public spending by the state. And as a result, you have expensive transport, you have a public distribution systems have been dismantled, cooking fuel, clothing material, or the quality of food and the nutrition security, they all get compromised because of the tremendous economic hardship which the structural adjustment programs forced because of the kind of monetary policies and the fiscal policies that were imposed on the poor countries. So it is not only in India, but in Africa, Latin America, and Asian countries, they all had to face the negative implications of devaluation, deregulation, deflation, and denationalization, and whatever the state, the responsibility of the state as for welfare, that reduced, and states' role remained mainly for monitoring of the community, monitoring of their internal security and the population. So the human miseries increased and escalated economic inequalities, in which poor women suffered the most because they are the last one to eat, and they are they even in the so their nutrition suffers. They are the ones who have to provide for the family, so they have to put in more labor for processing the inferior goods, which would be cheaper. When you have less money, you end up buying inferior quality of stuff, which demands a lot of time for cleaning and processing. And women, the dismantling of public health system or reduction of budget in the public health system, which is less than 3%, that also affects the priorities given to men's health, and women's health suffers the most. So mass unemployment, food price volatility due to liberalization of agriculture, galloping inflation, privatization of education and healthcare affect common masses, and especially women, children, and the elderly. They are affected the most, and that's why globally also there is a need for advocacy. Many of you who would join as a politician or as a bureaucrat or as as academician or as a policymakers, we need to prevail upon the global institutions also that please don't impose such harsh conditionalities on the poor countries so that people don't suffer. Women are the ones who are going to suffer the most. Now, India's missing women, that has been a major debate, a topic of major debate globally. And there are a lot of different opinions there about this. This is the data from the ILO data that how work participation of women have been have reduced over a period of time over last 20, 20, 30 years. In 2000, we boasted of 40% of women in the workforce. And by now, by 2017, it was 23%. And such drastic reduction in the workforce participation. There were four reasons are given. One is that increase in, first of all, automation, massive automation and mechanization has taken place. The new technologies of artificial intelligence or Industry 4.0, which have been grabbed by men because they had a technical know-how to deal with these technologies, while women were never given opportunity. That is the one reason. Second reason is that of women's responsibility of childcare, because now the state-supported crashes have reduced. You must have seen this week's report also that we hardly have now 4,000 crashes throughout the country. There was a time we used to have lakhs of crashes supported by the Central Social Welfare Board. So though we have a union budgetary allocation, but the proposals are not signed. So childcare sector has been privatized. It is unaffordable. So instead of women sending the child to a childcare center paying 15 to 18,000 rupees in city like Mumbai, they would tell even the middle class woman would be told to sit at home and look after the child. Another thing is that India's birth rate has gone down drastically. We have 18 states of India where birth rate, total fertility rate has gone beyond 2. That means less number of children we have, and we have a burgeoning our senior citizens or the elderly population proportion has increased because of the increase in life expectancy. So there are families in which women are looking after 4 generations. So you are not only looking after your children, your husband or other family members, your in-laws, your parents, but also your grandparent in-laws and grandparents. So this is the kind of scenario several Asian countries are facing because of the increase in life expectancy. So elderly care has also taken a heavy toll of highly competent and educated women. They are sitting at home. 40% of women with MBA degree are sitting at home, mainly because of this domestic responsibility. And the fourth extremely important factor is that of a sexual harassment at workplace. We saw that after Nirbhaya tragedy in 2013, we saw a massive decline of women. From 34%, it became nearly 27%, 7% decline, because parents would say that after the harassment from street harassment as well as sexual harassment at the workplace, this have also created a very, very deterring effect for women's participation in the workforce. So sectoral distribution of women, if we see that first of in the agricultural sector, we have a highest number of women. Okay, while industrial sector, nearly 15% are there in industry in the rural areas, because now we have a rural industrialization also. In the service sector, we have a huge army of Asha workers, Anganwadi workers, or women in the rural-based IT industry, that means call centers, and other services in the rural areas, so and peri-urban areas. So even in the rural areas, we have 13.8% women in the rural service sector. While in the urban areas, service sector, you can see the complete change in the composition. 63% women are in service sector. Is it a time to be jubilant about it? No, it is not. Or hardly 2-3% of them are in IT sector. Rest of them are either as a platform-based service providers, or they are domestic workers. Because now the 24 crore Indian whose capacity to hire domestic workers has increased threefold. Okay, so in our mother's generation, we may have some domestic worker who would come for an hour or so and do the top, they call it top work in Mumbai. But now you would have 3 to 4 domestic workers for elderly care, for child care, for cooking, and for cleaning up the house. So we see that increasing number of women in the service sector or the beauty industry, massive this thing of a beauty industry, with a platform based or working in the parlor or the massage industry. So these are the new kind of services that have flourished in over last 20 years. And this is the one industry in the urban areas, which is called services sector industry, there the work participation is very high. While in industrial sector, if you see that earlier we used to have nearly 40-45% women in the manufacturing sector, where it has declined, because manufacturing sector, whether it is a small scale industry, medium industry, or a large scale corporate Fortune 500 company, massive automation and mechanization and rationalization have taken place. So the doors are closing for women in the manufacturing sector, and now more so after pandemic, where they are also using robo for manufacturing, the routine manufacturing work. And in urban agriculture, which is there also in the periphery of the urban areas, as well as in the suburban urban areas, where you have a 7.3% of women in this agriculture work. So now declining work participation of women in has been a major concern, and World Economic Forum also in its global gender gap report has ranked India as a more than like it is in the 108 out of 144 countries. That means India's rank in the global gender gap has increased mainly because of the 3 factors. One is a lower participation of women. Second one is a declining sex ratio. Sex selective abortions are taking place. And third, that percentage of women in the parliament and legislative assembly is abysmally low. Currently, it is 14% in the parliament, and in the state legislative assemblies, it is between, say, 11 to 13%. In different states, it differs. So these are the 3 factors which have brought India's rank much, much behind, and it was 108. And what we see that according to the McKinsey Global Institute report, India represents only 24% of the paid labor force, as against the global average of 40%. And the figures are low for women, even though proportion of economically active population, like which increased from 57% to 63%. So all the new jobs that came out, they were grabbed by men. The reasons are increase in family income, that they call it prosperity effect. The families which are getting, say, 6-figure salary, their women are pulled out, whatever may be your educational level. But they say that there is no need for you to work, because women, first of all, there is such unequal wages men and women get. So why? But just you be the good homemaker, look after children, look after elderly, look after sick people. So that mentality. Second one is that more girls and women are going for higher education, which is very, very important, because now after the 22 years of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, we brought in Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan as an act in the year 2000. So after 22 years, there are so many girls who benefited from the state-supported education, plus infrastructure, plus midday meal scheme, plus all the tools which were needed for education were provided by the state. Many millions of them managed to pass 12th standard, and they entered the university system. Agricultural mechanization also resulted in a rural job decline. So defeminization of agriculture also started happening in the beginning of the 21st century. Automation, rationalization, artificial intelligence, and computerization also had a labor reducing impact, and of which women suffered the most, no, because they were the first to be fired, no, and last to be hired. Small nuclear families because now the joint family system is almost disintegrated, not only in the middle class, but even in the working class, no? And the massive labor migration takes place. So small nuclear families where the child care and elderly care falls on women of the household, and that also prevents them from entering the workforce. So the question recently, what we see is that globally, as well as in India, if you see some of the judgments of the Supreme Courts and the High Courts of, say, Madras High Court or family courts and all, where the question of women in unpaid care economy has become very important. During the pandemic also, when economists were crying hoarse about economy closed down, but we did not feel that because women were doing well. The unpaid care economy was very much there. They were looking after, they were cooking, they were cleaning, they were looking after the sick, and they were also providing all the basic necessities of the family. So the larger economy, which was closed, but that did not result in disappearance of the people, okay, because of the unpaid care labor. So when we see the dual economy in our model of our country, where you have a very 6 to 10% of the population workforce, which is very privileged, which has been able to gain a lot due to globalization. Okay, so their lifestyle is very different. While large majority of people who are in the informal sector, their quality of life, the gap between them has increased. In fact, even if you go by the Gini coefficient, the inequality quotient, the income gap and the inequality has increased. Migration has intensified, whether it is a rural to urban migrant or interstate migrant or cross-country migrant. So the question of women migrate. Women don't only migrate because, as the census would say, 85% of Indian women migrate for marriage. But even after getting married, they work, no? So why only focus on marriage? Marriage takes two, men and women too. And when men are projected as worker, why not women? So status of women migrants as workers, as contributed to the economy, that has to be brought to fore. More visibility is required. Gender disaggregated data is required. The agrarian changes which are taking place, penetration of cash nexus, shifting from subsistence economy to the commercial crop, I think that has also impacted women's predicament. And modernization, the whole importance of service sector that has happened in the after India adopted the new economic policy. And we always say that it's the service sector that has contributed to the increase in GDP. But it has also resulted in the jobless growth, because what is the capacity of a highly technology intensive service sector? When it comes to labor relations and labor processes, labor laws are extremely important, and we can't get away with hard-earned labor laws over the last 150 years. Electronic revolution, which have the teleworking and outsourcing, has posed new challenges, because when you are working on a platform-based work, you don't even know who your actual bosses. Where will you take your grievances? The kind of recently we are seeing so many wildcat strike by the e-commerce workers or the platform-based workers of Ola and Uber and all, because the moment you are locked out or you are thrown out of their internet network, you are lost. So there is what kind of security? Using flowery words like a partner, that they are they partner? No. The companies which are making millions, billions of dollars out of their the labor, they are not partner. The people, the platform-based workers are leading such a precarious life. So these questions have come up. Feminization of some professions. We see that when we talk about feminization, it is not that biologically a woman doing job, but informalization. The workers who were earlier enjoying all the labor rights, who had a collective bargaining facility, they get thrown out of that kind of a secure space to informal place. That is also called feminization, because that used to happen historically. That would happen with women, because of the use of the ideology that women earn for, women work for pin money, or women's income is supplementary, we can afford to give them less. But now the same thing is happening even to the male labor force, and this process is known as a feminization of profession. Part-time work and flexi time, which are talking about the gig jobs. You must be like in all the films in the Netflix and Amazon, they are showing how the work profile has changed for the young workers, and even for the elderly employees. They are suddenly thrown out, and they don't even have a bargaining power to get the job in current context. Withdrawal of state from the care work of it, whether it's a children's elderly care or a child care or welfare or this thing, it doesn't happen. It is not happening in this neoliberal macroeconomic policy. So what happens? The whole burden falls on women, and that's why the unpaid care economy, even now, the unpaid care economy has become a central concern even in the discourses of the International Labour Organization and the UN Women. Now, women in care economy, that is one important agenda. Women in subsistence production, women in plantation, special economic zone, export processing zone, coastal economic zone, their condition, the researches are happening, and so many new policies are demanded. The question of universalization of maternity benefits, not only to the organized sector, but to women in all sectors of the economy, even in informal, unorganized sector, need for universalization of crashes, encouraging more and more states to apply for the funds allocated, because why should fund allocated for crash remain unutilized? The union budget has given the centrally sponsored scheme, but why isn't it utilized? The sexual harassment at workplace, again, it's a very, very, according to World Bank, it is the most devastating occupational hazard of the 21st century. And it's a globally, because women are entering so many areas which were earlier only monopolized by men. Women are now in almost all fields of the economy, and the rebuttal, the male anxiety, it expresses itself or manifests in the backlash of violence and sexual harassment. So discrimination and harassment are two sides of the same coin. And anytime women try to challenge the discrimination, they face sexual harassment. Me Too movement has also shown that safe transport, shift duty, the rules about the shift duty, or the family-oriented transfer policy, family leave, gender differentials in the hierarchy of sunrise industries that we have, whether it's a startup. So many complaints are there that even when competent and qualified women, they send their proposal, the investors, even the nationalized bank, don't consider this proposal as economically viable. So even in the corporate world, you see there is a glass ceiling, there are glass cliff, glass lip. So you at one level you feel that there is a formal equality, but in actual day-to-day life, you feel so much of, as a woman professional, you see so much of microaggression happening. So career prospects of women in profession, that is another important concern India is facing. Corporate response to the maternity and women in profession. These are some of the important issues that we need to take up. Now, coming to another very important area, which is politics. So with passing of the Nari Shakti Vandan Abhiyan, like we have, it was passed on 31st in September. What we saw that women's reservation, now we have 33% reservation for women in the parliament. And there are currently, if we see the scenario without reservation, we have 82 women member of parliament. While number has increased significantly since first Lok Sabha, where it was only 5% of women, though these women had played a very important role in the freedom movement, okay, right from Quit India movement to right from 1917, you can say, after Jallianwala Bagh massacre, women were very, very active in the public life. They had given up their parda and they were on the streets, they were quoting arrows. But after the independence, what we saw was that most of the women became the homemakers, and very few women who were very active in the freedom movement took part in the active politics or administration or institution building. Women candidates find it very difficult to win legislative assembly and parliamentary election due to onslaught of money power, muscle power, and misogyny. It can be countered only by the affirmative action, and that affirmative action is the women's reservation. We have seen that International Institute of Democracy and Electoral Assistance showed that nearly 40 countries which have mandated quota for women. The major political parties in more than 50 countries have voluntarily set up quota provisions in their own statutes. According to recent UN women data, Rwanda has, in Africa, 61% women in the parliament. You know, the Rwanda was completely devastated by ethnic cleansing. Most of the adult men were killed because the two warring tribes, they had killed each other, and that was a country left with only women, orphan children, and elderly people. And how women have completely rebuilt the nation with their effort and their vision, and with their gender responsive way of organization of the nation's economy, polity, and administration. Cuba has 53% women in the parliament. Nicaragua has 52% of women in the parliament. These are the post-colonial countries, okay? Bangladesh has 21%, Pakistan has 20% of women in the parliament. And what we saw, the European Union has a 40% reservation for women in the European Parliament. According to the report of Election Commission of India, women represent only 10.5% of all members of the parliament. That includes Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And women MLAs representation is lower than 10%. That means only 9% if you see all the states and union territories. So this is the scenario that we have when it comes to women as women's political participation. So their representation in Lok Sabha, and this is what we see, that number of women MPs we have in the whole history of parliamentary election, from 4.5% to 12%. If you see the winnability and the candidates, what is the percentage of candidates, male candidates and women candidates, and what is their capacity to win elections? So if you see the chart below, success rate of men versus women, blue is men and red is by women. Success rate, if women are given the candidature, women are given the ticket by their party, then their winnability is high. They put in their whole effort. Though they have less money, they don't have muscle power, they don't have mafia power, but their winnability is high. So generally, the argument which is thrown against women candidates by their political bosses is that we are not giving you candidature because we are doubtful of your winnability, which is proved true, which is proved wrong. You can see this chart, which shows that though less number of women are given tickets, okay, the highest number of women who were given tickets was in 2004. 668 women were given candidature by either the party or independent. As against that, men were even more than 10 times. There were 7,583 men contested election. Okay, so even the less number of women were candidates, their winnability was much, much higher. So we see the whole struggle that we have had right from 1996 to 2023 was a whole 16 times the bill was introduced, and we were in the parliament. It laid without, and it was the lot of debates took place, lot of physical fights and breaking of furniture took place repeatedly. The bill was introduced in March 8, 2010. Women MPs of all political parties got united and introduced the bill in 2010. There was no debate had taken place. Despite knowing that women's performance, if you see the evaluation of the performance of parliamentarians and the legislators, women have had a better economic performance. How do you do that? Every member of parliament, every MLA gets the area development fund. The use of area development fund, they have fewer criminal charges of murder or theft or money laundering. They are less corrupt. They get work done. Whatever mission they have taken, action agenda, or whatever promises they have made, they fulfill, and they are conscientious. The way they look after their family, they look after their constituency. These kind of research reports have been officially been released, okay, NIRD, National Institute of Rural Development, or UNDP report, which are showing that performance of women, commitment of women elected representatives have always been much higher. Even during the pandemic, we saw the women elected representatives in the Panchayati Raj institution, they were accessible to the community. They used their power to make the life of people in the midst of this health emergency much comfortable by intervention, by making vaccine accessible, by managing the camp for detection of corona, or by providing food, running the community kitchens, or then also providing masks. All these things they had done. But when it comes to power, where the stakes are very high, the hurdles for women are also very high. Currently, as of now, the situation is that we have total Lok Sabha members are 542. Total women in Lok Sabha are 78. Total women in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are 102. And as per the Inter-Parliamentary Union, women constitute 14.44% in the 17th Lok Sabha. And Election Commission of India says that it is 10.5%. That means some of them may be evacuated, or they may have died of this. For all the state assemblies, women MLAs representation stands to average 9%. So women's leadership in political governance, which prioritizes human development agenda. So 33% seats for women in the parliament. Now it is predicted that now once we have got this kind of a support, we will see the major change in the political scenario, though it will be implemented only from 2029. But women are more concerned about the ground level reality. We have seen that wherever women have got the ministerial berth, they have very judiciously implemented a pulse polio campaign, or providing safe drinking water, electricity, gobar gas plant, road construction, school construction, minor irrigation. This is what the NIRD study shows. And it also shows that they have also prevented child labor, they have prevented child trafficking, and they have also prevented alcoholism by not giving license to the alcohol shops and alcohol liquor dens. So to translate the constitutional guarantee of equality into substantive equality, what we need is that equality of opportunity, equal treatment, equal space in the public life for nation building, and also this affirmative action of 33% reservation is extremely important milestone in that regards. Some of the controversial issues we have faced over the last 30 years regarding which impacted the national political and national social life was in the Devrala Sati episode in 1987, where the polarization was very sharp, about which in the first lecture, I think Madam Amarjit Kaur told us a lot. Shah Bano case in 1986, where the polarization on religious ground and identity politics took place, when the Shah Bano won the case of maintenance from her ex-husband because she was given summary oral talaq. Communal carnage in 1993 also resulted in a polarization. Caste conflicts and riots between 1980 to 2023 also resulted in, because there was all of these conflicts, they were played on the bodies of women. Mass rape was used as a weapon to demoralize the community. The question of moral policing by the family members of a young couples, young women, honor crimes, they became very, very important concern in the Indian political scenario. There were questions raised in the parliament. There were public interest litigations filed in the Supreme Court of India. From the sexual violence, right from the time of Nirbhaya 2013 to the Bilkis Bano judgment, which came day before yesterday, we have seen that the sexual violence has become a very important political concern for the not only for the women's rights movement, but any democratic minded person. Women of different religious communities have fought for the gender just family laws in the area of marriage, divorce, custody of child, maintenance, right to stay in a matrimonial home, right to stay in a parental home, inheritance right. Okay, so or a guardianship right. These have been and women from all religious organs. We have a religion-based personal laws, and we have seen so many women from the different communities, Parsi community, Christian community, Hindu, Jain, and Muslim communities have demanded gender justice in the family laws. We also have a 30,000 customary laws. So we see that increasing number of educated tribal women, they are also fighting against some of the extremely derogatory customary practices, such as about the menstruation or about the virginity, which also creates conflict at a ground level. Scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC women's reservation within the 33% reservation is now, which was raised during 2010, and nearly for 22 years, so many debates took place, and now in the current act, Nari Shakti Vandan Abhiyan, it has been taken care of. What we see that the transformation of macroeconomic policies is very important. One is that what kind of monetary policies we have, the policies regarding the social sector budgeting, gender responsive budgeting, they are very important. And we are going to now have interim budget on 1st of February. You know that IMPRI organizes series of the budget, how different sectors of the economy are impacted by the budget, gender budgeting initiative, which started in our country. Ministry of Finance started it in 2005 as a policy framework, as a methodology, and it is a participatory bottom-up approach. So that is a very, and we now get a separate statement also in the union budget. Even the 7 states are also giving the state budget also gives the separate budget book on gender responsive budgeting, which has 2 aspects. Part A talks about 100% targeting of women and children in the budget. What kind of schemes and programs are there? Ministry of Women and Child Development's budget, and 33% targeting of women. So the 33% of the budget targeted in all the development-oriented anti-poverty programs. So these are the 2 important concerns within the budget. And so I have covered on the whole economic aspect, educational aspect, cultural aspect, and also the political aspect, which are determining, shaping the lives and the struggle, existential reality of women. Some of these publications and the references I've suggested, they all are in public domain. Freely you can download them. And the latest publication by IMPRI, State of Gender Equality, Compendium of Deliberations, which captures the debates and discussions over last 3 years, from 2019 to 2021, that can be used as a reference point for the further understanding of the issue. Thank you very much. Over to IMPRI.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We are truly grateful for your valuable time. Your expertise truly deepened our understanding of the subject matter. The way you articulated so much information with so much ease was truly inspiring to all of us. And you provided a very new perspective to all of us that was really thought-provoking. And you have only expanded our knowledge and also inspired us to explore further. We look forward to the privilege of having you as our guest again down the road. Thank you, ma'am. Now we will be taking some questions from the audience. You can raise your hand or type in the Q&A box.
Lopamudra Ghosh has asked that, can we get this PPT? Yeah, definitely. I will share it with the IMPRI team, and you can share with them. kindly explain how the shifting from subsistence agriculture to commercial agroeconomy has added to women's predicament in the India, in particular, and world in general. So what happens that in subsistence, women have played a pivotal role in subsistence economies, when it comes to food security, then vegetables and fruits. But when the commercialization of agriculture takes place, with the technology and high yielding variety and pesticides and all, it is the men who take over, because it gives you immediate cash. Subsistence economy helps you to survive. Okay. So, which women have been doing right from the time of settled agriculture was invented. Okay, so that has been traditionally women have been doing that because they are always seen as a provider to the subsistence of the family. But the moment cash comes into picture, if you see the study, the whole experience of Amul Milk Cooperative, okay, before Amul Milk Cooperative, women did everything about animal care and animal milching and milching for the family, and little bit surplus milk they would just sell in the neighborhood and all. But the moment you have dairy industry, the productivity increases. Women do everything. They do the collection of fuel, collection of fodder, feeding and cleaning the animal, milching. The moment milk is ready, men take over, because you sell the milk, you give the milk to the cooperative society, immediately you get cash. And that has been the experience all over the world, that wherever the cash is there, men control cash in any economy. Even when you see the studies of women entrepreneurs, so many women entrepreneurs have a fear of success. Why? You make some bakery item or you make some snacks, and you get your pocket money. Just whatever little profit you get, you from there you can buy vegetables and fruits for the family, and you can supplement the family's uh, quality of life by. But the moment your business succeeds, immediately husband would say, I'm giving up my job. Why should I go out and work when there is a way of earning at home? No. So even if the studies of women entrepreneurs, self-employed women, successful women, if you see the success of the cash is general, and cash in the capitalist society, cash is the most powerful weapon to bargain, to bargain within the family, bargain in the community, bargain in the economy. It is the ultimate uh, uh, expression of power, money. Okay, so so in agriculture, when commercial crop wherever they have entered, you can see the Gujarat, or say the most Punjab and Haryana. Take Punjab and Haryana, right from 1971 census also showed 2% work participation of women, 3% work participation of women. They were the most beneficial states due to Green Revolution, which brought high yielding variety, which brought agricultural mechanization, which brought tractors, which brought pesticides spread by helicopter. Okay, so all these technologies were first of all, technology in our context is also a phallic symbol, because we women are not allowed to touch any tool. Okay, traditionally, we in Gujarat we have a festival where women fast, and that day you can't eat anything where tool is used. You just throw something on the soil and whatever grows that you can eat. So that is why, to compensate for polluting, because you menstruate. So even the industrial training institutes we have 300 state-of-the-art ITIs. If you if you ask the directors of ITIs, they would offer only two courses to women: tailoring and screen print. Screen printing is redundant. Now we have we have computers. But all other 125 types of courses, lathe machine operation and electric this thing and mechanical engineering and all sorts of courses we have, they would offer only to, they would dissuade women from getting into these courses, or they would just create such an atmosphere, tumse kuch nahi hoga. In fact, when I go for the women engineers of Mumbai, they had formed an organization, and they in the training workshop, they said, the way we walk, the way we dress, the way we hold tool, everything, they're constantly ragging. They just affect your self-esteem. This, ma'am, we have got same degree from IIT, in fact, more marks and this thing. But still, when we work in the field, site work, you will never be able to do it. This is how they talk to us. So if this is the way in which the whole ecosystem is there, then and constantly telling you are technophobe, technology is not your forte. So that's kind of thing we see. So commercialization of agriculture also comes with the capital intensity. And when there are technology, that also the training or handling of the technology is done by men. And that's why we see that women are the first to be weeded out of agriculture when the commercialization takes place. Even in Africa, we have seen that all this Nestle and Cadbury and all the juice making, this thing, when they ask the African farmers to go for commercial crop, basically the fruit cultivation, coffee cultivation, cocoa cultivation, women were the first one to be checked out, because earlier the same space was used for subsistence crop, which is the staple food of Africa, is a makkah, corn and vegetables and fruits, which are for the domestic household consumption. That was replaced by the commercial crop, which also resulted in hunger, of course. Hunger in Africa was created by agro-business, not by the Africans. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, Nikita Desai, go ahead with your question.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
I missed the live session last time, just joined today. Not wasting time with an introduction, but I have a experience working with tribal communities in Gujarat, in South Gujarat, and background in development studies. Though my focus has been more education and higher education, we work with the college, and my question again is linked with skills and really training for rural women and rural youth. So what are those skills? Because in spite of having a degree science college, what I've noticed is, like you said, even after the degrees, the aspirations are only government job or teacher, and women are sucked back into the system. And the other option is we're also working with a lot of other elderly women with the NRLM mechanism. So, what promise do you think that offers? That's one question. And the second is, what are those key skills or sectors that you think for rural, young women, we should promote or focus on in terms of skilling?
Yeah, I think skilling, first of all, aptitude test is very important, and for this. And I think when we have 125 types of skill programs for in the Industrial Training Institute, why not encourage them? Like, and also right from school, like in my school, I studied in Baroda in Alembic Vidyalaya. It was compulsory for girls to go for tailoring after 5th standard, while the boys were in the this thing, they were in technology. So technology versus tailoring, that was the option. So the mindset of the girls also became like that, no? And the tailoring doesn't offer you many commercial opportunities, because how many tailors you would need? While all my classmates in my school, most of them are engineers, and throughout the world they are working. So I think at a very early childhood stage only, this whole differentiation between girls and boys, even in the giving mechano, even if you see the balwadis, and even if you see the preschools, where the kind of things which are given to women to do, girls, and the mechanos or anything mechanical, or doing this kind of using their hands for creating something, which is technology driven, that goes to boys, while the women are only given. So I think education can play a very important role in inculcating the aptitude for technology, number one. Number two, when it comes to mathematics, science, technology, engineering, and science, pure science, there also I think at an early childhood interest is very, very important. Creation of interest at a very early childhood is very important, because after 4th or 5th standard, I think the mind, your personality is shaped. Freud is right when he says that whatever you get in 0 to 6 age group always remains with you throughout your life. So I think aptitude, in changing the aptitude of girls, or non-discriminatory way of imparting education, that is very important. third one, that the studies, Indo-Dutch program studies, or even the BMC studies are showing that encouraging girls to take leadership role in the class. Like when I was in SNDT, I was wondering, I said, how come in economics department you have 180 girls, majority of them are from Bombay University, who had co-ed school education and co-ed undergraduate education. And these girls told me that, ma'am, there we were only backbenchers and were clapping for whatever the boys in our class were achieved. While here it's a women's university, we get to do everything, right from elocution to taking positions or contesting election or being representative, having voice, sending, we are sent as a member of delegations. So I think the leadership, inculcating leadership role and confidence building, it also goes long way, no? Like, see, Maharashtra government in 1991, Chief Minister decided to have 30% reservation for women in engineering colleges. There was a big uproar. There was a massive, if you see the engineering colleges, principals and professors could not control the sexual harassment of the girls because these boys were so angry. And imagine these boys are intelligent boys because they have got some, to get admission in that competitive field, you need 94% marks to get PSM, no, physics, chemistry, mathematics mark. And they felt so angry that how come this girl with 84% marks getting electronic and my friend who had 92% mark did not get it. So the whole idea of affirmative action that throughout the civilization, women have not been given level playing field. We are compensating for the historical injustice. And that came, but government was formed. So now it has been institutionalized, the 30% reservation for girls in the engineering colleges. And that's why you can see highest number of women engineers are in Maharashtra state, and they are in every field, right from running, they are running the metro. First time when they were recruited for metro, the metro company, the bosses, they said, oh, but how can we trust, no, 7 lakh commuters are using metro. How can we trust women? We said that you can trust drug addict, you can trust the alcoholic driver can be trusted, and you think that women can't be trusted. So this kind of argument had to were happening even in the selection committee. Even in the selection committee was happening. But I think once you argue, you things change. Same in ONGC. ONGC would not accept any women for offshore job. They said, no, it will corrupt the atmosphere. I said, what do you mean? Presence of woman engineer will corrupt the atmosphere? I said, you know what are these male engineers are doing? It's a completely automated plant. They are just watching pornography. And even they use the communication system to get the cassette. Those days, they used to have VHS. So we argued with the chairperson or chairman of ONGC. And they said, this is not the way. It is victimizing the victim. These are the women who are MTech from IIT. They are applying for the job. They are not asking for any concession. They are ready to do any type of job which is required. And then you say, just because they happen to be women, you are rejecting them in the selection committee. How, to what extent it is justified? Even when ONGC took over Uran and Mandwa for the oil exploration, and the villages were evacuated, and they said that they would compensate the villagers by giving them job to one man in the family. And we said, nothing doing it. Was Sri Mukti Shangatnavit intervened. They said, well, how can you say that? Why can't women? They said, oh, but they won't be able to do the kind of job ONGC requires. And they said, okay, we are ready. We will pitch in and we will conduct the classes according to their qualification. They have done farm work. That means they have a skill. Don't say that women and the people in agriculture don't have skill. They have skill which are not useful for ONGC, we understand, but they are skills. So they are basically skilled human being, and we are ready to give them basic literacy. So give them job of a liftman, peon, or messenger, and in course of time on the job training can also be given to them. So I think if this kind of hand holding, according to the micro reality, whichever way you are in, what is the community's needs, no? Whether it is the needs of, like the way Seva has started, no? Seva cooperatives of women. Now they are trained into masonry, electrician, plumber, fitter. Same YWC had started vocational education course. Only problem that is debilitating is sexual harassment. So then also we can have a solution by cooperative effort or by working in a group, no? So instead of you going to somebody's house, let them bring their equipments to you for repair. Or when it comes to factory or offices, have a cluster approach. Don't employ one or two women. employ them in a group. I think that is the demand even the transgender community is asking. That if we are one or two, we can be witch hunted, we can be taunted, we can be harassed. But if we are there in at least 5 or 10 in the same enterprise, then we can at least talk to each other, support each other, and collectively raise our concerns. No? So I think multifaceted, laterally, top down means all laws and policies, laterally where the more empathy creating and continuous gender sensitization program and making the early childhood education gender responsive, very important, and also egalitarian.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Now, Rinku Shewawatji, you can go ahead with your question.
Hello to everyone, and my heartfelt gratification for you too, ma'am, for this such an insightful session. So my question may sound a little bizarre, but I have seen it over the course of period, whatever experience that I have had with working women. I myself am one. So like many people must have contested this, but I don't know if this has been a major question that given the circumstances that our lifestyle is, and there are women who are facing a lot of challenges in fertility. So first of all, they have to go through the medical treatment, which is like very painful and time taking process of IVF. And I am saying this because I have seen my colleagues, and many a times what happens that they go for, when you go for IVF, doctors would always try to, I don't know how to put it, but then many women would give birth to twins. But we have a provision of only 6 months maternity leave. Now, I understand that, this maternity leave is given for the recovery of women, and as well as the child care leave, right? So, I mean, it really takes a toll on them to take care of two babies at the same time. And we have inculcated this nuclear family sort of lifestyle that people do not have elders to take care of their kids. So I mean, this is very bizarre, but why can't we contest the maternity leave, extra maternity leave for women who are giving birth to twins?
They have a provision of extension of maternity leave with 50% pay for 2 years, no? So there are many.
Ma'am, that is sabbatical, which is like you have to go for leave without pay.
Not without, with 50% pay. And there are some of the corporate houses, it varies from enterprise to enterprise. Like it all depends on the employers also, to what extent they would, what kind of combination they give, flexi time, or the you keep your child in a crash for 4 hours and then you go back, or bring in Bombay. Another thing has happened at the executive level is that they can take the children, because they travel by private transport, and they have a big chamber where the child and the crib can be accommodated. So that kind of provision is there. Then work from home is another experiment which has which now, after the pandemic, more and more people are demanding. Not only women, even men are demanding. And you know that 1 month, I think in the month of October, when the corporate houses, they say that now you will have to come as per the earlier pre-COVID arrangement. There was a mass resignation of women, and all of them were young mothers or women who had elderly care work, no? And then the corporate, they said, okay, we will now, you can individually negotiate your flexi time, what kind of arrangement you want to make. So that is there. But I think this pregnancy punishment and maternity punishment, or you can say.
Ma'am, why I ask this? Because I have seen, and this is the government who forms such policies, like you cater to a large section of women, who are working for you, and still you do not have that provision. So
Correct,
that's like very challenging. I've seen people giving up on their jobs just to take care of their kids.
It's correct. That is a very big issue, but that is also like the two sides to it. Like, see, East European countries, they are giving 3 years of maternity leave without loss of pay or loss of promotion. Okay, because it's a pro-natalist country. There is a very shortage of population. They want women to produce, and the literacy rate is very, very high, and women don't want to produce babies, and the state is providing so many facilities to women so that the workforce is there is a regular continuous supply of workforce. Otherwise, if the birth rate has become most of them have negative birth rate also, these countries. But then women do, they said, we are losing out on our knowledge if we are away from work for 3 years. See, if you are a scientist, or if you are a the person academician, then they would not like to be away from work for 3 years, because the interaction with fellow human being, colleagues, and and students is very important. But I think we should leave it to women looking at their personal situation and their health and their requirement. I think flexibility should be given. Women should not be penalized for maternity or for motherhood. So this is called as a maternity penalty and motherhood penalty, which women have to face in the labor market. That is a very important that is about which I think we need to have a more gender friendly or a women friendly laws. The countries in which women are politically powerful, you see there is lot of supportive services are available, where you have women ministers, women prime minister, or European Union, where you have 40% women parliamentarians. They are the ones who bring progressive laws of flexi time or more social protection, social security, state support in cash as well as in terms of facilities, so that you don't lose out. No. So the pay parity, very important in that. Just because you have maternity, you can't lose your seniority in the workplace. No. So that is very, and even this year's Nobel laureates work also aims at that. No, that why should women be punished? For they are doing socially useful role. So for that, the mindset of politicians and the movers and shakers of the nation state have to change. Do you see maternity or pregnancy as a personal problem of a woman, or she is contributing to the national human capital or the human resource to the country? Because if she doesn't produce babies, where will you get the workforce 20 years down the line? So this is the approach. So most of the pro-natalist countries, like when I was in Russia, my Russian interpreter, his salary was deducted at source. 40% of his salary was deducted because he was bachelor. He did not believe in institution of marriage, and he said he is not interested in producing babies. Then the state asked that, who is going to look after you when you become old and ill? It is someone else's son and daughter will look after you. So you have to pay extra tax. So for this, so I think the way of looking at the workforce, see here always we were always India, China, and most of the developing countries, we always saw children as burden. No, when I was studying economics in the 70s, they did not even talk about birth rate and death. They called them population bomb. That means these children are going to be bomb for the country. They are going to destroy the country. So if you have such a negative attitude towards childbirth or a birth rate, and now, even now, when birth rate in 20 states have gone below stabilization, we have 1.7 birth rate, total fertility rate in all 7 states in South. Okay, there are couples are producing less than 2 children in 7 states. Other 20 states, couple are producing just two children. That means even out. When this couple will die, the children will take over. Okay, but still, the overall attitude against the children as a burden, children not as a national capital. If the moment politicians and the policymakers start looking at children as an asset for the nation building, then their attitude to and not in no individuation. It is not an individual woman's problem. The country is getting the workforce. If that approach is adopted, then you get more responsiveness towards maternity and childbirth. In fact, for ILO, it took so many years to get Section 125 implemented to increase maternity leave from this 90 days to 180 days. It took such a long time. I have attended all those workshops, but ILO was pleading the countries. It's very important to provide more maternity leave, because these women who are part of the workforce, they are making very valuable contribution. Just because of pregnancy and maternity, why should they be thrown out of workforce where they will not have any chance of getting back? Because that is also the problem. The moment you are out of the workforce, it's very difficult to enter into the workforce, because things are changing so fast. Organization of work is changing so this thing, and you can't keep in touch. You're if you are, there is a gap of 3 to 5 years, again getting back to the same level of efficiency becomes a problem. So instead, why not to give them more congenial atmosphere where they can work? Like in some of the corporates in Chennai, I heard that they are counseling women when MBAs and executives and all, they decide to resign after pregnancy or marriage. They are counseled. They said, what are your problems? And the counselor sees to it that whatever bottlenecks they are facing or the challenges they are facing, for which they find an alternative, and they said, okay, we can, if not for all 6 days or 5 days, at least come for 2 days in a week, or you choose the time according to your child's school timings of your school of your child. No, so I think that the attitude of the employers and employers organizations need to change more. Currently, you have seen even when it comes to the menstruation leave, so many negative statements are being made. In fact, it's a question of a woman. Different women have a different kind of a biological requirement, and you should leave it to them whether they want or they want menstruation leave. It's very painful, but the state comes up with or the minister comes up with such insensitive remarks, then it gives the message to the employers also that why should we be this thing, let them take CL and sit at home. No? That kind of approach. So
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering all our questions in so much detail and with so much patience.
yeah.
Unfortunately, looking at the time constraint, we won't be able to take any more questions right now. But thank you so much, ma'am, for shedding light on such an important issue and for inspiring all of us to be an advocate for positive change. It was truly inspiring to hear from you today. Thank you, ma'am. Now, moving on to our next session, I'm delighted to call upon Ms. Urvashi Prasad ji, Director, Office of Chairman, Niti Aayog. And we're really excited to hear about her enlightening us about young women pioneering a new era in public policy. We welcome you, ma'am. If you could please take it from here. Over to you.
Urvashi ji is having some connectivity issue. Why don't we take another question till then? Preet?
Yes, sir. Riya Pandey ji, you can go ahead with your question.
Good evening, ma'am. Sorry, I couldn't just on my camera. I'm just traveling. So I had this like really general question. You talked about the pay parity issue that is really prevalent even today, and you even talked about like what are the possible ways and the needs to reduce this gap. But I wanted to know your perspective, like why it still persists in like especially in the formal sector.
Yeah. Even in the formal sector, they would do it in a very different way. They would not give it by not giving you promotion. Okay, you and both of you, like in case of Audrey Ribeiro, she used Equal Remuneration Act because she that there was the first public interest litigation in India immediately after the ERA was adopted, passed in 1976. The problem it was a multinational company in most posh area of Mumbai. And she joined as a young woman, as a receptionist. After 6 months, she was asked to mentor a young boy who became her boss. Nearly for 20 years, all the boys who learned everything of the office management from her became her boss. And when she asked for promotion, they said company did not have policy to promote women. She will have to retire at the same position. So that is one way of pay gap. Okay, not even when you are competent, not to give you promotion. Number two, another gap is that of when the new technologies come, new way of organized computerization or rational or new machineries come, not giving that training to women, so that women will remain at a lower position. Men who are like when computerization was introduced in the public sector, MSCIT. Okay, all the men were the first one to go for MSCIT, because the moment you have MSCIT certificate, you get promotion. And what this man did, they put all the pornographic images in the computer lab. The moment you switch on your computer, you get horrible images. And women got so scared. I'm talking of my experience in the WDC of Mumbai University. And they got so scared, they would dread entering the computer lab. And then this men, very well organized, unionized men, they say, oh, women are they will never understand computer. They are technophobe. Women can only do cooking. They can't handle computer. So this is what, and when we probed into this thing, that why aren't you opting for the course? They said, ma'am, this is what is happening. And then I, as a WDC member, approached the Vice Chancellor. And luckily for me, Vice Chancellor was sensitive, Dr. Balchandra Mungekar. And he says that, okay, Dr. Patel, we can centrally ban all from the main computer, the technology land. We will disallow any pornographic images or websites to be in Bombay University campus. And after that, we saw within 1 year, all the women had been trained in MSCIT. So that is that. The third issue is that of fear of success, as I told you, that as it is, there is so much of aversion for women entering into the workforce, women having their own money. So many hurdles they have. So even when they join the workforce, the aspirations are very low. In fact, when I became director of PG, I was director of 16 departments in SNDT. None of the women teachers had applied for promotion. I said, how come you joined 20 years back, 50, 25 years back, you are still a lecturer? They said, हाँ ठीक है ना, salary मिलती है, घर पे जाके दे देते. And I said that you should have promotion. And I fought with the registrar that why aren't they promoted? They said, ma'am, promotion doesn't fall into your lap. You have to apply for it. So even these women, I'm talking of 80s when I joined the academic world, where women were, they said we are allowed to work so that there is a supplementary income. So seeing women as a supplementary income earner without any identity, you don't identify with your work. You are earning and giving your pay packet to your families. That was coming. Now the mindset has changed. It's your generation which says that, which grew up in a more egalitarian ethos, that we have equal right. If and now you see young, even non-teaching staff, they will say, I am qualified. I have this MCOM. Why can't I become the office superintendent? And that one of the reasons for increasing sexual harassment is also that the women now talk about equality of treatment, and they say it is my right. They don't see it as a gift or from the generous patriarch. No. So I think the age-old way of looking at women as a homemaker, the whole dichotomy of public versus private, and also seeing women as a supplementary earner. If you see, even in the economics, the way we are taught, it is economic man who takes rational decision. Where is woman? she's not even there in the economics. Okay, rational man who maximizes profit as a producer, maximizes satisfaction as a consumer. So this is what we have been indoctrinated even in our education system, our custom, tradition, people, like every time I showed my good marks in my school days, the response from the relatives was that after all, you are going to be the minister, Kadcha collector, one who is going to be in the kitchen. What's use of such achievement? No. So if this is the kind of vibes and the responses women get, in that case, what you see is that that there is a less aspiration also. You don't even aspire. No. When we took our girls, like we work in 20 bastis in Mumbai, when the girls were taken to education fair, they did not even know that 218 courses are available for women in this women's university. They said, we never thought, we thought that once we get menstruation, we will be married off and we'll be sent to our native place and we'll be married off. So this, you don't even give that kind of exposure. So the aspirations don't come. So I think it increases the responsibility of all of us collectively, wherever we are, whichever location we are, to build a congenial, in the final, change the mindset, and also provide more enabling environment using our power of writing, power of pen, power of lung, power of tongue, power of position, whichever we are in.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we have Pratibha ji. You can go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Hello, Pratibha Narayan, please. Unable to unmute myself.
Yes, ma'am. So we'll go on to the next person.
No, but can you, at your level, can you do?
I can read the chat, ma'am.
Okay. So,
Pratibha ji, you can just write the question in the chat box.
You have given her permission to unmute?
She's in a public place. Read it's in the Q&A box.
Okay, okay. Meenakshi Ravi Krishna, domestic work done.
Above that one, it is noticed. Yeah, it's also chat.
Nidhi?
Read it.
I'll just read it out.
Nidhi?
Pratibha, ma'am, I'll just read out Pratibha Narayanji's question. It is noticeable that there is a difference in the participation of the women in education and workforce between the north and the south of India. Is it also backed by data? And if so, are there any significant differences in the policy implementation among these states, or is it largely mindset dependent?
Yeah, I think, see, in the certain states, we have seen that always the 7 certain states, there is a more mobility of women because they did not experience invasions, no? All the invasions which took place over last 3,000 years, they were up to Vindhyachal. No, they did not cross Vindhyachal. So generally, we have seen the mobility of women in the southern states is much, much higher. Moreover, the social reform movement of the 19th century in southern states, whether it was in Kerala or whether it was in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, it was also coupled with the anti-Brahmin movement. So social reform movement in northern part was basically reforms touching the Brahmin and upper caste women. Okay, so whether it's a Gujarat or Maharashtra, even if you see Pandita Rahamabai's book, it is her book is addressed to high caste Hindu women. Okay, so the reforms touched there. While in certain states, social reform touched so-called lower caste also. So the massification of education, which is called, what education? Massification of education, which is now happening in India, in the northern India, it happened way back in the 60s. In Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, in Karnataka, in Andhra, massification of education, enrollment drive happened, plus the budgetary allocation because of the so many leaders, right from MTR or NTR or even in Kerala, you can see that they came from the underserved community, so they knew what it is not to have education. Even the person like, say, Dakshayani Velayuddhan, she was a person of Pulaya community and she was not even allowed to wear blouse. So her social reform movement was much more complex. And once they fought for their rights, they also saw to it that education becomes your mission. So all of them played a very important role. The whole legacy of from 19th century played a very important role in enrollment. Enrollment was seen as a mission. Sri Narayan Guru. What Sri Narayan Guru was from the Dalit communities. No, he himself came from that, and he says education is the liberation. That's the way Baba Sahib said that education liberates. No, and they not only gave that slogan, but they built an institution. They built their own hospitals, they built their own colleges, they built their own hostels, they built their own the schools, and saw to it that the children of the quote unquote lower caste, they were in it. So that explains massification of education. Another thing that happened for the technical education of girls in southern states, massive migration, out-migration of skilled man workers to the Gulf countries. We started from the 70s. There was a tremendous shortage of electrician, turner, fitter, repair person, mission. So industrial training institutes of southern states opened up for women, because they needed, the villagers needed runner and fitter and plumber and electrician. Men were not there. Men had already left for the Gulf countries. So they were the first one. Even if you see the Sharm Shakti report, it shows in 88. These were the states which started giving admission to women for the technical this thing, and saw to it that their employment was also, because you work in a village situation or a peri-urban situation where everybody knows everybody else, and you work in a cluster, so that provides you protection also. So that explains this thing, and the budgetary allocation. Definitely at a subnational level, budgetary education is very. Kerala, 10% of the 40% of total state budget goes directly for social sector. That means education, public health, clean water, and welfare, workers' welfare. Kerala is the only state which is a hostel for the workers. That's why reverse migration did not have such a gory and devastating impact. First of all, there was very limited reverse migration because the workers were looked after by the state. So I think the state policies, the historical legacy of the social reform movement, and the financial allocation for massification of public health and education. Kerala is a universalization, no? The drinking water or ration or public health, it's a universalized. You go anywhere in Kerala, they will not ask you what is your income. Once you go to the civil hospital, you are there. Once you go to this thing, PDS, they will not. Universalization means that if you don't want to use state facility, your problem. You can go to private and pay money. Okay, but like Thailand has a universalization. Thailand is a small little country. They have a universalization of healthcare. So any person in Thailand can get state free, subsidized or the state supported healthcare facility. Now there is a private sector. And if you want to use that private sector, it's your choice. Same in England, so many European countries, they have a national health service, which is by the government. If you think that national health service is inferior and they are not giving time, there is long queue, and you go to private sector, that's a different concern. So I think the more social sector budgetary allocation is also played very important role in the southern states. And also overall mindset of about restriction of women, segregation of women, not allowing women to go out unescorted, all that was traditionally not there because of the no history of invasion to those states.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, Pretha ji, you can go ahead with your question.
Yes.
Hi, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Currently, India, as an increasingly globalized country, we see that English as a language has become a very strong tool for upward social mobility.
Yeah.
For example, even if research states that, if an individual speaks English, they're able to earn 30% higher in terms of the income that they earn, and for every other education examinations that you need to write for, be it in law, medicine, any other area, you need English. However, access to the language is very skewed in terms of people having better economic means, being able to access the language better. And also there is an intersectionality view. There is a lot of gender disparity in accessing the language. Again, a certain communities being able to access the language. In general, wanted to understand your view on how English can be used as a tool for upward social mobility, specifically for women, because we're discussing women here.
And see, when the Macaulay imposed English, he had a very different object in mind, no? That he wanted to create coconut. Coconut means those who are outwardly brown, Indian, but inwardly they are white. So, because the knowledge plays a very important role in preparing your mindset. So, the Indians would always have a inferiority complex about their own culture, their language, and this, and they would look up to English as a perfect. That is the benchmark which you would try to read. So it started with that kind of a intention, because they know the immediately after 1857 mutiny, British East India Company realized that 5,000 British officers can't control a country of 35 crore population. That time our population was 35 crore, and plus even Burma and Afghanistan, Pakistan, all of them were part of the greater India. It was such a big country. So it started with that. But then, see, language also is a power. In the colonial times, knowing English would enhance your opportunities for being part of the inner circle of the British world. This thing, and also the promotion, the kind of jobs that you would get in the colonial India, that would happen. But currently what you see that now it is very important link language. It has become globally, because now even if you go to Europe and any country, like all the countries who used to earlier shun English, they are also promoting. If you go to Germany, say 30 years back, you went to Germany, you would not be able to manage without knowing German. But now that's not the case. It has become a global link language. It also increases your outreach, in terms and also the access to the world knowledge. So it is from that point of view, if we see, it has become a very important, even in the East Europe and Russia and all. Now they realize that, okay, you just can't get everything within the nation state. You have to be the global, and more the languages you know, more powerful you as a person and your country will become. So that is the realistic understanding, knowing that whole colonial baggage that we have about this thing. And now I think with technology, it is very technology and the multicultural environment in which we live. People are knowing more than 4 or 5 languages. A child in Bombay would know minimum 4 languages. In fact, all my colleagues who have become grandmothers, they say this child knows so many languages at the age of 2 and 3. They are knowing father's language, mother's language, link language, Hindi, and local language, and the language which we speak. No, so language is a power versus language as a means of communication. I think we need to differentiate the two. When language is a power, when it comes to that, then I think you also have to say that we are not, our language is not inferior. That's what most of the tribal communities are asking for, because we have 16 official languages and we have so many dialects. So those dialects and culture, it's so much, language is also so much linked to the culture, no? The local culture. So that way, preservation of language is very important, but this at the same time, knowing English, knowing more languages is always advantageous in the globalized world. So it's very important. And now you have technology like Bangladesh, they use the technology, mobile technology. The teachers were given mobile and lingua phone. They were using massive or MOOCs being used, technology. That's what they have been using to learn the new languages, and making the access, last mile connectivity with the community is very, very important, so that people can pick up as many languages, including English. In fact, Mayawati ji gave a slogan that we should have a temple of Macaulay, because Macaulay is the one who brought in English education. And he says that the Indian education, ridden with the caste-based discrimination, doesn't provide any opportunity for upward mobility for the Dalits. And he said the only way Dalits can come up, and Baba Sahib also, when he decided to wear coat and tie, and he said that was the non-caste-based cultures of the West, because he got his degree from the university in America and he did his postdoc from London School of Economics. So he says that it is the caste system, which is such a layered hierarchy, systematic. It is worse than racism, because racism discriminates only on the ground of language, but not to the extent of what you eat and what you wear and where you go and with whom you talk. And you first find the location of a person and then decide whether that person is a subhuman or human. So if it is very much a political issue. With language is a very political issue in our country. First of all, the moment you say that Hindi is a linked language, there are 7 states who would stand up in arm against you. They said, no, it is not a linked language. My language is Kannada, my language is Telugu, my language is Malayalam, my language is Tamil. Who are you to say that Hindi? Hindi is a language of the Aryans. It is not a language of Dravids, no? So it is such a, when the power politics takes place, it gets vitiated. But I think as a matter of communication, it's important in today's world to know English. Yes. Yeah. It has become a world language. I think it's the structure of English language is such that easiest to learn, because even Chinese, like if you Mandarin, so many younger generation of people, they do Mandarin is like Sanskrit, no? They use Roman. Goa, you have a Konkani as a dialect, but when it comes to the script, they are using Roman script. So Roman script is the easiest to manage so far as when you want to quickly pick up new language.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we have Meenakshi ji. You can go ahead with your question.
Yeah, good evening, Professor. My question is, I was just curious to understand about this women who are contributing at the domestic work level also should be included in while calculating the gender gap index. So they also passively contribute to the income of the economy. So how do we manage this gap, and how can this also be calculated? Because this doesn't show the correct picture of the contribution of women towards the economy. And number 2 is definitely at the policy level, women who are staying at home, who are passively contributed towards the income of the economy, should also be considered in a way. I mean, probably like that is why I'm just asking you how this can also be considered, and they should also be given a stand in the economy. Yeah.
So the whole debate about wages for housework, it started in 1978, where 200 years of Mary Wollstonecraft's book, no, Women's Subjection of Women, was written. Mary Wollstonecraft wrote it, and she was a suffragist. She wrote it in the last quarter of 18th century. And in 1978, when it completed 200 years of its publication, there was a massive campaign throughout Europe about the wages for housework, and what they say that the major theft of the civilization has been not first of all acknowledging and recognizing contribution of women as a homemaker, and there are 2 aspects to it. One is a cooking, cleaning, caring, okay, which you do, which you may leave as a residual item, but over and above that, there are things which women do augments the resources, especially in the subsistence production, the food security, collection of fuel, collection of fodder, collection of water, animal care, kitchen gardening, collecting the non-timber forest produce. Currently, our tribal women, 11% of Indian women do that. So all these things augment family resources. If women did not bring water, you would have to purchase water. If women did not look after the child, you would have to arrange for the creche. Okay, so there are so many studies which are done, which are about the what is the value, opportunity cost. In fact, the Anne Oakley study was the most pioneering landmark contribution, and Anne Oakley from London University did a massive study of women who were earlier working, but after the Second World War, when man came back, because you know that during the World Wars, whole economy of Europe was managed by women. Men were at the front. All able-bodied men were at the front. When they came back wounded, some of them had died also. Some of them had a massive psychiatric problem because of the devastation they witnessed in the war. It was once every war also results in reduction of population. So many people are killed. So after every war, you have a baby boom. And they use the mills and boons. It was a very conscious strategy to come up with the mills and boons. The formula is given by the publisher, that the nation is a patriotic duty of women to produce more babies and be the homemaker, and there should be status. The whole concept with the sociology circulated was a status consistency. What is the status consistency? If man is a doctor, woman is a nurse. If man is a manager, she is a secretary. So this kind of status consistency. So mills and boons always had a very romantic relationship between man and women, but on a position on the basis of inequality, okay, in terms of power and status and wages and all. So this thing happened, and in the post-war period, when women, more and more housewifeization of European women happened. And after that, there was a frustration also, because housework and the domestication also causes such a sense of worthlessness, no? And the Anocli study is located in that situation, and where she asked these women what were they doing and what kind of work they were doing before they got married. And after marriage, where are they? And she compared it with the cost. Like if they are doing cooking, then what is the cost of ready-made food in England? Or if she looks after the child, what are the hourly rates for the creche? So whatever work which women are doing as homemakers, she computed and provided the opportunity cost. And there are so many such studies of opportunity cost and comparing, had these women not been homemakers, where would they have been? What kind of increment they would have got? Where would they have been in the career, no? And same study, even now that Harvard economist, this year's Nobel laureate has done, very exhaustive study she has done of the metadata from the state government. And wherever she could not get that data, she studied the annual reports of Fortune 500 companies. How many women and men employees are there? Where are they? What is the career graph of men? What is the career graph of women? And they shows that the kind of gap that you have. And by 80s, what we got was a time utilization study. It was Anocli's work, and there are so many other feminist economists who also focused on time utilization, that all of us have our personal clock of 24 hours. How much time goes in personal work, how much time goes in the care work, and how much time goes in a paid work, okay? So first time Government of India has given a metadata. Must be Ministry of Statistics and Program Planning has given us a data. You can download that report called Time Utilization Study, TUS study 2019, where it shows that on an average, Indian women spend 10 times more time is for unpaid care work. Okay, so that is there, and which is the highest, even as compared to our neighboring SAARC countries, it is the highest, because the way housework is organized in India, they elaborate cooking, fresh meal continuously, the 3 times a day. So all these things also take even our nature of housework, which on an average Indian women do in both nuclear setting and in the joint family setting, that is showing that these are doing. And because of this study, some politicians also brought in their manifesto. For example, Kamal Hassan, in his political party's manifesto, he has talked about wages for the housework. In fact, several political parties, but it is also questioned, because the moment you talk of wages for to housewife, you are institutionalizing gender-based division of labor. Why should housewife be given this? But that means you are giving the incentive to the patriarchy that, okay, you be housewife and you will get wages by the state. But does she want to be housewife? Does she have a choice? She may be wanting to be an engineer or doctor or teacher or social worker or community worker, or just be out doing something out of the house. No? So that is gone. But good aspect of the positive externality of this debate is that some of the very progressive judgments which have come up, like Justice Ramana's judgment on the accidental death case, where the insurance company said that they would pay the compensation for the death of a husband for and computation was done from the time he died. He was 34, say he would have worked till the 60, and what would have been his chances of promotion and increment and all the benefits, economic benefits, on the basis of which compensation for man was decided. But when it came to his wife's compensation, the insurance company says she was just a housewife. And the court said nothing doing. She has done very important job. She's a homemaker. You have deprived the children of their mother's love. And not only that, she was also pregnant. She would have delivered a baby. And her contribution to the as a homemaker has to be valued, and accordingly, court decided 5,000 per month as a compensation, which is not enough. It was an arbitrary decision, but in principle, accepting that housewife stoppage. Another case of a family court where a very rich man, it was a case of maintenance, and he said that I won't pay my ex-wife a penny. Because I have a cook who can do the cooking. I have a domestic worker. She's of no use. Now she can't, she's now aging. She falls ill frequently, and she's of no use to me. And the court said that she has given the best years of her life, 20 to 30 years of her life. And before marriage, she was working. So she said that after marriage, she gave up her job. Had she continued her earlier job, where would she have been? Accordingly, the compensation was decided because the man was very rich. So his income, and what does she get? And she said that we know that you don't have any intention to pay regular maintenance. We don't want that house, the woman in her later, in this such senior age to suffer in her remaining life. So court demands lump sum amount that should be deposited in the court. Court will treat it as a corpus, and interest of that amount will be paid to her regularly by the court, family court, to that lady. So there are series of such judgments. You can read articles by Prabha Kotishwaran. She has exhaustively studied all the judgments of various civil courts, session courts, high courts, and Supreme Courts of India, where they have used TUS. In fact, that judge of Chennai High Court, she sat with the gender economist like us, and she said that how do you compute? What do you mean by opportunity cost? And she found the opportunity cost, and she also demanded compensation, lump sum compensation from for the divorced wife from the husband based on the time utilization study. So in principle, it is very important. But when we talk about wages for household, who would pay the wage? State should pay the wages, employer or husband should pay the wages. So that becomes the operational issue. Main thing is a recognition, and what some of the Scandinavian states have done. For example, Iceland. You must have read the whole strike, 100% successful strike of Iceland. It happened this year only, and it had happened also in 78, where even Prime Minister's wife had gone on strike. All women of Iceland, it's a small country, but all women of Iceland, they just left the home. They took their sleeping bag and they were staying on the road. And they left everything to the husband. They said, now you look after children, you look after elderly, you do the housework, everything. And economy was completely paralyzed. And after that, they negotiated with the politicians and the parliamentarians that recognize it is a valuable work, this thing. Plus, in the national systems of accounts, we do computing of GDP, we do computing of national income in 3 ways. We have an income approach, we have a production approach, and we have consumption expenditure approach. Now, in all these methods of computing of national income, you also show that what the mainstream economy, when you go out and get wages and salaries and honorarium and whatever lump sum amount, that is a different, that is computed in the, or even your interest income is computed in national income, have a line below that. And they say that this is the opportunity cost of women of our nation who are doing unpaid care work. And for that also, the comprehensive, as I told you, there is a time allocation method which Dr. Devki Jain, Dr. Indira Hirave, they have evolved. In fact, they did a study, took the NSSO data and also did a field-based study of Delhi city or the time utilization of women in different sectors and the different sections of society. So now 84 countries in the world are doing TUS, time utilization study.
Yes, ma'am.
They provide, state provides the data.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
The moment you click TUS on internet, you will get so many country reports, including India's report. MOSPI has published, Ministry of Statistics and Program Planning, 2019.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing your vast knowledge. I'm like really impressed. It just makes me to continue to look for next Saturday's class.
Yeah, next Saturday is going to be far more conceptual because there are so many theories, good, bad, GAD, women in development, women, how the different approaches to looking at women came in the policies and legislations and program implementation.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was truly a privilege to have learned so much from you. Now we would be moving on to our next session. I'm delighted to call upon Ms. Urvashi Prasad ji, Director, Office of Vice Chairman, Niti Aayog, to expand our knowledge about young women pioneering a new era in public policy. We welcome you, ma'am.
Yeah, sorry, there's some connectivity issues today, but I'm glad to be able to join all of you. And yeah, I think I'll just speak a little bit, about my own journey in the public policy space. And, obviously as a woman, as well, but I think just as any young professional who might be trying to enter into this space.
Yeah.
So I've myself been trained in life sciences and public health. I did my education in the UK after school, and I came back here. I worked in the development sector for several years before I actually joined Niti Aayog now 7 years ago. So I've been at Niti for over 7 years. And I think that is, one thing which was very, very valuable and useful was actually working in the development sector. I worked in a foundation, then I worked in a grassroots NGO. And that experience was really invaluable because when you talk about public policy, you cannot be just sitting in an office room making that policy if you don't have idea of what really goes on in a diverse and complex country like India on the ground. So that is where the work in the development sector that I had done proved to be very, very useful and helpful, because that gave me a sense of how things really operate on the ground. Because we make a policy on paper, but the way it actually gets implemented, the way the communities, the beneficiaries react to it, respond to it, how it benefits them, what are the unintended consequences. And here there's a very interesting story, anecdote that I always narrate, that I was, in my early years of my career, I had designed a slum sanitation pilot project. And we were trying to, this was a slum in Anand Vihar in Delhi, where, we did not have any sewage pipelines or anything. So we said that, okay, let us try and partner with a company called Saraplast. It was a startup then. Now it's a much bigger company, and they provide portable, toilet cabins and portable toilet solutions. So we said, okay, we can, install some of these in that slum. And let's see what is the kind of, experience, what is the kind of response, because, we didn't have the kind of pipelines to be able to provide every household its own connection. and its own toilet at that point. So we established a couple of these portable toilet cabins, and we were getting a brilliant response from the women, the children, especially the elderly, because otherwise, they all had to just there was a railway lines next to the slum, and they had to go there. And obviously it was very inconvenient for them. So they were very happy, and we were seeing very good response. And this was a basic, paper use kind of model, or even where people could sign up for say 6 months and pay a certain amount of money. So there was an inherent sustainability element as well in this model. So everything seemed to be going very well, and we thought that okay, we have thought of all the possible aspects. We have designed this so well. And suddenly, after a few weeks, I get a call from the person who was managing this project that the toilet cabins have been burnt down. And I was very surprised, because I said, why has this happened? Everything was going so well. And then when we did a lot of investigation, we found out and we realized that it had been burned by somebody who basically owned a lot of pigs. And he said that, now because everybody is using the toilets, and there's no open defecation, there's nothing for my pigs to actually eat. So, for me, these toilets are really damaging my very livelihood, and something which is such an important part of my life. And so he actually burnt down these cabins. So now this was such an incredible learning experience, and there is very few textbooks or frameworks, which will teach you this. It's only when you work on the ground that you realize that you can do any amount of planning and thinking, and you can think that I have thought about all possible issues, and then suddenly something can happen which you just never could have expected or imagined. So I think those are the kind of lessons which I would say to any young person who wants to work in the policy space, and I know that a lot of people now do, that first it's very important to get a sense of the communities, the people, the very complex social, cultural, obviously caste, religious, regional, all these kind of dynamics which are at play, and often kind of at loggerheads with each other. It is so important to understand all of these before we can actually start designing any kind of public policy. So I think that is the first thing that I wanted to really highlight. The second thing is that I think as a woman especially, there's a lot of added, I think, skill sets or advantages that we can bring to the table. And I think empathy is a very, very important one. I think women, of course, it's hard to make sweeping generalizations, but I think women, we tend to be more empathetic. We tend to be because even in our families and society, we are the nurturers, the people who are doing the caring for our own families, for our children. So we tend to be much more empathetic. And I think public policy needs a lot of empathy because you need to be able to understand very diverse perspectives. Like in this example I gave you, that there was somebody in the community whose perspective we had obviously missed out when we were actually designing this, and of course it was very hard to get everyone's perspective in this case, but it's just an illustrative example that it's so important that when you're designing any public policy, you need to understand the perspective of obviously the government stakeholders, but even the government is not one homogeneous body. In a country like India, there's a government at the central level, That too, there's so many ministries, departments, then you have the state level, then you have the district level, then you have the local government levels. So at each level, understanding what are the incentives and disincentives for the stakeholders to implement your policy. You know, why should they even care about your policy? What do they have to do? What is the role they have to play? What is in it for them? Then understanding outside, you know, what about the private sector? You know, where are they coming from? What about civil society? Where are they coming from? What about your ultimate beneficiaries, right? If it's a public policy, you're making it for people at large. What about them? You know, what is in it for them? What are the pluses, minuses from their point of view? Again, the incentives, the disincentives. So every stakeholder, you know, you have to understand very, very well where they are coming from. And I think that is where women, especially, I think we certainly have an advantage, and we can use this to our advantage. We can use this empathy, this understanding of people, being able to understand, you know, and read between the lines, because a lot of things go unsaid. A lot of things are just, you know, you see in people's reactions, you see in people's body language. And I think, you know, as women, if you're more sensitive, you're more empathetic, you're able to pick up a lot of these things, which are invaluable, you know, ultimately in designing and implementing public policies. So I think that is something that we should nurture, and you know, as women, we should be very happy to, you know, be in this space, and to be using our strengths, empathy, sensitivity being especially important ones. Of course, there's also challenges, you know, there's no doubt. I think being a young woman in the public policy space myself, you know, I faced a lot of challenges. I think we're still a country where we only want to listen to people who are either very senior, you know, in terms of age, or you know, then of course the male gender, right? So those are two issues we have still, I think, and it can be quite problematic, because, you know, listening to somebody who's younger and is a woman, you know, is often something we don't want to do. So I've often faced those challenges, you know, where I've only been the only woman in the room, the only person of my age in the room, but you have to ultimately find your space. You have to, you know, develop that confidence, which only comes with time, which comes with practice, which also comes with, you know, being able to push yourself out of the comfort zone, not being afraid of, you know, any kind of situation, and being prepared well. You know, ultimately that's where your confidence comes from. Any kind of discussion you're going to, any meeting you're going to, obviously you have to prepare well, you have to have the facts, you have to have all the perspectives, so that you can, you know, really confidently add to the discourse. So that is something that I think, you know, as women, yes, it is a challenge, and more so, I think, in public policy, because, like I said, you know, we still tend to, you know, favor kind of older, more experienced people in the space, and of course, the gender bias continues. But I think there are ways to get, you know, ahead of that, and it is changing. But yes, I think any such change, it takes a lot of time. So I think a lot of the onus is therefore on, you know, women, young women, to themselves, you know, come forward, and like I said, not get deterred by, you know, any of these situations. So I think, you know, that is another point that I feel, you know, as women, we do have strengths and challenges that we bring to this profession, and I think there's a huge scope, especially, you know, for women who are bringing a very realistic perspective. I think that is very, very important, because that is what I have felt in these, you know, last 7 years that I've been at Niti Aayog, and I've worked on a whole range of, you know, policies here, primarily health, but also nutrition, gender, you know, various issues that I have worked on, the COVID response, the G20 presidency, women's issues related to that, and now Viksit Bharat, leading up to India at 2047. So there's a lot of initiatives that I have obviously had a chance to work on over the last 7 years. And I think the fact that I had this extensive experience prior to Niti, working in the development sector, really being aware of the pulse of, the people for whom we are designing these public policies. I think that was invaluable. So I would encourage everyone to try and get that kind of experience, and it's, even if it's for a short while, but that is very, very valuable, I feel. And of course, there's many other ways that you can also contribute. Everything, it doesn't mean in public policy that you have to be in the government. You can also be outside. You can be in the private sector. You can be in a startup. There's so many ways in which you can contribute. But definitely, I think making sure that you have the correct skill sets in place, in order to be able to do so and continue to, hone and refine those skill sets and build on your strengths. Like I said, as women, especially young women, continue to build on your strengths is very, very important. So so I'll just stop here, and if there's any kind of questions or anything, I'll be happy to discuss further. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We're truly grateful for your valuable time and your insightful speech. It was truly an honor to have had the privilege of learning so much from you. Your anecdotes were particularly captivating, making the discussion even more engaging. Now the floor is open for questions from the audience. You can raise your hand or type in the Q&A box.
Meanwhile, we can invite Professor Patel to add. Professor Patel. Nikita ji, you can unmute also.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Urvashi Prasad. You have really shared your experiences, right, starting from the ground level work to your work in the National Niti Aayog, and talking as how we all can become catalysts for change, and how the young women who are pioneering the new era in public policy. Even in this program, most of the participants are like you. They are also very much engaged in public policy issues, either as researchers or as a NGO activist or in the legal field. And many of them are also preparing for the civil service exams. So I think things are very much changing. And as you say, that it is very, public policy cannot be done in ivory tower. You have to be rooted in the reality, whether as a grassroots activist or as a person who builds evidence-based policies, and with the bottlenecks that we are facing at a program implementation, and also connecting our micro level issues to the meso and macro level is very important. Today's reality, as you said, it's a really complex, and so many multifaceted challenges are there, changing the mindset of people, changing the gender stereotypes, making the whole concept of citizenry, responsible citizenry, vis-a-vis economic, social, climatic issues that we are facing, I think is a very important challenge. And person like you is a role model for the participants, that how a person can, with a determination and clarity of perspective, can reach up to the highest body of the country, which plays a very pivotal role in shaping the course of nation building. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nikita Desai, she has asked, no?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Glad to hear and that you've been with Neeti for 7 years. I had somewhat of a personal question. With someone with 14 years experience, development sector, I ventured towards public policy, did a 1-year program at a big B school. Don't want to name it here. Got some face time, but being from Mumbai, and also I feel that attracting good talent in public policy, I feel it's the systems of how Neeti even recruits. Is there any leeway that you can give? Because I feel a lot of my friends or anybody else that are very talented are now slowly getting attracted to this. But I feel like the way we recruit and even the avenues that we give young people to really engage, be it at think tanks, be it in the larger discourse, be it in research. Do you see opportunities opening up, and do you think that we're as dynamic as, do you think Neeti is a dynamic institute, or do you think there are good opportunities opening up for young people? Because I've had tough experiences, cracking it. So is there a glass ceiling there as well? If you can share a journey of how you got into it, that would really help.
Yeah, I mean, Neeti has has had over the years also, and I also got in through the standard recruitment. They had put out an advertisement many years back now. Now, of course, there's two tracks which now operate in Neeti. One is, of course, the consultancy track on which you have the young professionals, and then you have consultants. Depending on the level of work experience. So, you have either grade 1 or grade 2, and then you have senior consultants who are, people who have more than 15 years of work ex. So that is a consultancy track. But then we also have now a track in recent years which is called a flexi pool recruitment, which is basically people who get recruited from the outside. So, it is still lateral entry. But these people are given the same, rank and designation and of course the same pay, etc., as somebody, who would be a civil servant of that level. And so that is the track through which on which I'm currently there. So I'm also part of the flexi pool, and so if I'm a director, then I'm treated at the same level as a director from say the Indian Administrative Service would be treated. So you're treated at par as with a civil servant, and you have the same kind of responsibilities and all of that. So that is another track of recruitment. But right now what we have done with Neeti, and it was just last year that we kind of brought in this system that anybody who is interested can go, and we have a database where they can put in their details, and they can put in also their interest areas and of course their experience, etc. And we will now kind of do recruitments on a rolling basis through the year, because otherwise sometimes the recruitment cycles take a lot of time, and that is one of the issues, that you put out an advertisement and then people apply, and then there's shortlisting, and then there's interviews. So all of that can take a lot of time. So instead of doing that, we are saying that now people should anyway put their details into this database, and as soon as we have something which is relevant to their level of experience and interest, we have a vacancy either in this kind of consulting thing or in the flexi pool, then that individual can be contacted by Niti Aayog. So so that the process then of kind of shortlisting and interviewing, etc., is already expedited, because their details are already available, and they've been contacted on the basis of that. So that now I think is something which might just quicken things up a little bit, because now it's going to happen on a rolling basis instead of just in response to a particular advertisement.
Great. Thank you so much. That's good to know.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for such an insightful session. My question was that what are some key skills and competencies would you recommend that young women cultivate to excel in roles in the public policy sector?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, like I said, certain things that, inherently women tend to have as advantages or strengths, I think those definitely, you can further hone and bring to the table in terms of, empathy, understanding stakeholders, etc. But I think other skills are, probably not very different from, what even men would need. But I think any young person coming into the public policy space, I think it's very important, like I said, that you need to have a good understanding of the ecosystem, the stakeholders, the incentives and disincentives. You obviously have to keep yourself up to date with, whatever is the latest in your particular field and what is the latest research, what is the latest evidence, not just in India, but, across the world, so that you can bring the kind of good practices from everywhere, from different Indian states, from overseas where it's relevant. So I think that is obviously very important, that you have to continuously keep learning and also educating yourself. So I think that is an ongoing kind of thing. It doesn't stop, at any point in time. And I think also progressively, as you rise up the ladder, of course, in the public policy space, there's different kinds of challenges that you have to face. So you have to be also quite adaptable. You have to be flexible. And that's, probably no different from many other careers as well. But I think in public policy, it's just that there's a lot of complexity, especially if you're working within the government system. There is a lot of complexity in terms of the stakeholders, in terms of, and also if you're coming in as a lateral entrant, you're coming in as somebody from the outside, then you have to know and figure out, ways and means to work effectively with the bureaucracy. So I think that is also a very, very important kind of skill. In fact, I think a lot of the reasons why lateral entry sometimes doesn't succeed is because of that kind of uneasy relationship, between somebody who has come in as a sectoral expert or, a lateral entrant, and somebody who's a career bureaucrat. And if that's an uneasy or uncomfortable kind of equation, then it's sometimes very difficult, to be successful. So that is something that you can only learn, by experience. It's very hard for these things to be learned otherwise. But I think these are nevertheless very important skills, which, especially if you want to stay in the government system for kind of any length of time, or in a government think tank or agency like that, then I think these are very, very important elements in particular.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We're truly grateful for your valuable time. Your willingness to share your expertise has not only broadened our horizons, but has also inspired us to pursue new paths with confidence. Thank you immensely for your time and wisdom, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now I call upon Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, our chair, to give her closing remarks.
Yeah. I think I would like to place on record that today's session I have really enjoyed. It was a challenging session because when you take a world economy as a universe and focus on India's challenges with regards to women's development and empowerment, I think it's a very big topic, and we have been able to collectively come up. I have thoroughly enjoyed the Q&A session where such well-informed participants who have who have also studied the subject thoroughly, both in terms of practice and in terms of the work that they have been doing. I think I find it very rewarding. We have been able to discuss on the socio-economic, cultural, related issues regarding women's leadership. And I'm sure that in the next lecture, where we are going to connect these issues to some of the conceptual concerns that we have regarding visioning about women's future on this planet. I think they will also be, I think we'll get equally interesting response from the participants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, as we come to an end of day 2 of Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship, an online national winter school program, a 2-month online immersive introductory leadership certificate training fellowship, I, Teetlath, researcher, IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI Gender Impact Studies Center. We're grateful to our experts for day 2, Professor Vibhuti Patel ji and Ms. Urvashi Prasad ji, for taking out their valuable time and for giving us an opportunity to learn from this online certificate program. We thank all our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated in today's deliberation. Reading for the session has been shared in your email, and a video of the session will also be shared for your learning. We look forward to welcoming you on our 3rd day of the certificate course on 20th January 2024 at 3 p.m. We are grateful if you're watching us later on YouTube or listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join in to our future IMPRI Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning. Wishing you a very good evening. Thank you so much.
Now, how do I share the PPT? What do I do? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Because there are many requests for the PPT. Yeah.
I mean, send it to us. We'll send
Okay.
the video.
Okay. To the learning at IMPRI. I'm sending it right away. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.